Shalom Uvracha. It is Thursday, August 20th. I hope everyone is well. I hope everyone's families are well. We're coming up on Erev Shabbat Parshat Shoftim, which is a parsha which focuses almost entirely on national institutions of the Jewish people as they're getting ready to enter the land of Israel and set up a polity and set up a society. And so we have the issue of the judiciary, the courts, the focus on creating a political system, the monarchy, the Nevi'im, the prophets who would be side by side to the political system to keep them in check, little checks and balances, and other major communal mitzvot about war and peace and other areas that are central to the existence on the national plane. As I said, the first mitzvah mentioned in the Torah here is the first pasuk, Shoftim v'shotrim titein lecha b'chol she'arecha, asher Hashem Elokecha notein lecha lishvatecha. Shaftu atam mishpat tzedek. So you shall appoint for yourself, you shall set up Shoftim, judges, and Shotrim, which is probably the way that you execute the judicial system, what we might call the officers of the court, the police force, and you have to set this up b'chol she'arecha, everywhere, throughout the land of Israel. V'shavtu etam mishpat tzedek. The Ramban, in a very famous comment, notes, in passing, he doesn't formulate it as a question, but the Torah already in Sefer Shmot had mentioned the reality that there would be a court system in Parshat Yitro, and then in Parshat Mishpatim. The Torah speaks about a judicial system. In Parshat Mishpatim, it mentions Ad Elokim Yavo Dvar Shnehem, to the Elokim, which in that context means the authority, which means in that context the court, that there are cases that have to be brought to the court. The whole idea of a civil legal system in Parshat Mishpatim assumes that there's a court that's going to adjudicate cases. Yitro talks about the setting up of Shoftim. So what in a sense is the value added in this parasha? And the Ramban basically hints to the fact that outside the land of Israel, you have a kind of ad hoc system. You have a system which is reactive. To quote the Ramban, Aval kasher yitzak ha'meuvat, when the person who's been wronged cries out for justice, Ya'amdu alav haruyim lishpot ubemishpeteihem yishpetuhu, those who are authorized, maybe on an ad hoc basis, to adjudicate the case and help the person seek justice, O ya'aleh la'aretz, or he's going to have to go to the land of Israel where there is a set court system. So outside the land of Israel, where the Jewish people are not sovereign, where they're not organized as a national unit, there's no mitzvah. It's more reactive. It's more ad hoc. It's more community-based, if you want to use that term. But in the land of Israel, you have to set up a national court system. And it's interesting, the Torah emphasizes that it should be everywhere. V'shavtu etam mishpat tzedek, b'chol she'arecha. You have to do it everywhere. Notein lishvatecha. Tzedek, tzedek tirdof. L'man tichyeh v'yirashta et haaretz. So, the thrust that you get from reading this parsha with the Ramban, through the eyes of the Ramban especially, is that in addition to a reactive judicial system that sees something bad happen and it's brought to their attention, right? Like the district attorney decides to prosecute something, there also has to be an active statement, an active move by the society to set up courts in almost like a preventative mode, not to let things fester, but to create a judicial system throughout the land, that it doesn't simply wait till people come to them, but goes out and fosters justice. And that might be certainly what this other pasuk in pasuk bet In addition to setting up a court system, it says tzedek tzedek tirdof. You have to seek out justice. You have to put into play a society that is actively, not just sormei ra, avoiding the evil, but also asay tov, going the step further. And I think that this is a very powerful message for us at this moment here in the life of our country. We have certainly during the course of this year been, if one can use that term, been more sensitized to some of the injustices that exist in our society, even in the justice system, even in the police system. The racism, the brutality that sometimes expresses itself, the lack of access to resources that many of the minority communities have, some of the systemic problems that still exist in our country, which is still a work in progress. And, we are very quick in the sense of reacting when we see something terrible happening. But the Torah is commanding us, we can't wait till that thing which then boils over and erupts, and sometimes erupts in very negative ways, with violence against innocent people, riots, looting, and vandalism. If you let things fester, not to justify it, but it only will create more problems down the line. The Torah is saying we have to create a society that has tzedek tzedek in it, and not just react to the most egregious forms of injustice, of racism, of anti-Semitism, of all kinds of terrible things that occur, as well as the problems that have created lots of that poverty and created a lot of that sense of being left out of the American dream. It also means, when the Torah says, B'chol sharecha, we have to care about every member and every aspect of our society. And this is a tension. It's a very big tension, especially here for us as modern Orthodox Jews who want to be involved in the society, who want to care and should care about the welfare of every person in our society. At the same time, we have to worry about the welfare of our own community, of our own school system, of our own shul system, of our own communities, which are very expensive to run, given the church-state issues, which take a lot of time and effort and resources. And we are pulled in these different directions. And in effect, the Chazal really highlighted that tension in a very famous passage in Pirkei Avot that we all know. Im ein ani li mi li. If I'm not for myself, who's going to be, right? If nobody cares, right? I don't expect the average American citizen who's not Jewish, who's not observant, who's not religious, to care about funding my yeshivot, my day schools, etc. On the other hand, as Chazal say, v'im ukshani la'atzmi, but if I'm just for myself, ma'ani, what am I? I have to care about the society in general. And here in Teaneck, we have that tension all the time. And it's legitimate. Good people can have different points of view, exactly where to draw the line. But I think it's clear that Chazal wanted us to hold those two things and not simply abandon and say, oh, we don't care about what's going on in the rest of the society. We don't care about the public school system and its funding and its challenges. We don't care. No, Chazal wanted us to have that tension, and we all have to live with that tension, and we also have to try to do the best that we can to balance our own parochial needs, our own needs of im ein ani li mi li, and at the same time making sure that shani la'atzmi ma'ani, and that we have to take care as well, if we can, especially since many, not all of us, but many of us, and certainly as a whole, the modern Orthodox Jewish community has been very blessed in this country in the last decades to be part of the upper middle class. We have to be part of recognizing that and our responsibility to the whole of society and the whole of our town and the whole of our community, at the same time arguing for the things that we need as legitimate rights, not simply as charity, but as rights as American citizens. And as I said, people can have legitimate debates within our community and with other communities with civility and with recognition that we are simply trying to do the best to balance these two important modes to ensure that we really do get to the place where we have mishpat tzedek, as the Torah says. I want to wish everybody a wonderful Shabbat and all the best. Kol tuv.